Today, I want to discuss the very controversial and nuanced line between sexual assault and sexual fawning, and how the results are the same in the individual's body, but the circumstances and the situations are very different. Ever since the Me Too movement, there have been many, unfortunately, many allegations against different famous and regular, not famous men all over the place from different women, usually, about being groomed, being sexually assaulted, being raped, and having allegations about some kind of sexual abuse. And when I listen to the allegations and I read the articles and I listen to the interviews with the people that have experienced the abuse or the assault, there's a common denominator that isn't being spoken about. I experienced the same thing watching the documentary Twin Flames about the cult known as Twin Flames. And there's this missing piece of the puzzle, and the missing piece is sexual fawning. And what's connected to sexual fawning is a desperation to belong. So when we have sexual assault, when we have rape, we have forcible penetration. That is so important to me because after Me Too, I would be in sessions with clients that would say something like, he basically raped me. And I would say, what does that mean to you? Tell me what he did. And they would say, he grabbed me inappropriately, or he kissed me harder than I wanted to be kissed, or we had sex and I regretted it. That's not rape. I'm not saying that it's always appropriate. I'm not saying that it's not a bad boundary or a boundary violation, even. But rape is very different and it should be reserved for those who are forcibly penetrated, who are held down, who are threatened, who are forced into a place of I could lose my life in this moment if I don't acquiesce. That's rape, and that's very important to keep that where it is so we respect people who went through that. Now, let's go over to sexual trauma that's related to sexual fawning. Sexual fawning is why we have so many stories and experiences, some of my own even, and I'm sure some of yours as you watch this, where you have something that's consensual and non consensual. You're on a date. It's your husband of 20 years. It's somebody you're having a fling with, a friend with benefits. And something goes in a weird direction that you feel really uncomfortable with, but you say nothing. You don't say no. You smile instead of having a straight face. You laugh instead of saying, I'm disgusted. You say, that was really wonderful afterwards, even when inside something in you is collapsing. Part of why we do this is the fawning mechanism. It's a trauma response, which means it's reflexive and automatic, and it's part of securing your attachment to somebody who has your life in their hands. So think about someone that robs a bank. They walk in, they hold up a gun to the cashier or the person at the desk or behind the counter, and they say, give me all your money. The person doesn't go, no, right? Which is what we want to do. The person goes, I'll give you whatever you want. Anything you need is yours. That is a fawning response. We're supposed to fawn, which means reflexively people please the person in front of you who has your life in their hands. Why would you want to do that? When you can charm, delight, and relax the nervous system of someone who's violent or oppressive or empowered above you, like dominant, then you start settling their body out of a fight response. So, someone who wants to kill you, this happens when people get abducted or held hostage. Somebody who is sexually assaulting you, somebody who is coming in to hold you up at gunpoint or to steal something from you on the street. These are moments where your life and your safety is in the hands of someone else. In that moment, the animal body will realize I can't fight this person because I might die. I can't run away because I'm backed into a corner. I can't just completely shut down, even though I'm starting to. I have to perform a sense of enjoyment and pleasure and interest and delight in this other person, which makes them feel liked and wanted, which settles them so they don't hurt me. This is how people get away from really violent circumstances. This is how I survived my sexual assault. And many people that are sexually assaulted will fawn. However, sexual fawning is not always sexual assault. Yet, sexual fawning is almost always sexually traumatic. Okay, it's very traumatizing to sexually fawn because your body's doing the opposite of what you want to do. The reason I'm saying this in relationship to sexual assault allegations and actual experiences where there's a power dynamic and someone has felt taken advantage of. When you read the text messages, when you read the videos, the letters, the emails that are sent between the person, let's say, experiencing what they would call the abuse and the other person who's being fawned to, you'll see the actual words of "I love you so much. I care about you. You're the best. You make me feel so good. That was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." And when you ask the victim about this, they will say to you, "I feel so much shame for saying that. I can't believe I let them control me. I can't believe I let them think I wanted it." And this is where I bring in the controversial nuance. That other individual, the one who perpetrated the abuse, doesn't necessarily know that they're making you think you want it. When our bodies sexually, and I say this as someone who has sexually fawned, so I'm trying not, who has sexually fawned, I'm not trying to like victim blame, I'm trying to victim empower so we can learn how to outcreate these circumstances and situations and teach our daughters and our children and our friends and our lovers even how to be aware of this so we can start avoiding it and hopefully as a society grow out of that. So when I tell somebody how amazing last night was, even though I fucking hated it, I'm in a fawning mechanism. I'm telling an individual who probably doesn't have a lot of attunement to begin with if we had a really unpleasant sexual experience. I'm telling them with my words how much I enjoyed it. I might be telling them with my body during the experience that I'm enjoying it. My smile, the sounds that come out of me, the way I look at them afterwards, the promise of "I can't wait to see you again." This is all part of sexual fawning. And I have to be even more specific about this. When I say I'm telling them this, my body's telling them this. This is why we can look back at letters. I mean, I've looked back at emails I've sent in horror and shock because you will see yourself after the it has happened and you will see this strange performative thing you're doing that isn't congruent with your integrity. What you really want to say was last night was horrible. As I sit with it, I realize that my boundaries were violated. I didn't know how to tell you that because I was scared, so I'm telling you now. I don't think I can see you again. Or would you be open to conversation about this? That would be if we were in our integrity. And I'm not saying that in a way to be rude or disrespectful. I'm saying just the reality of it. When my expression and my boundaries and my needs are congruent with how I feel, that's my integrity. That's what I call integrity. Fawning by design takes you out of your integrity. Fawning by design makes you perform and express something that is incongruent and opposite to what you're actually feeling and wanting and needing. So when you consider that, and then you consider sexual fawning, you can see how people can have weeks, months, years, and years long relationship with somebody who they will actually experience as oppressive, dominant, and abusive. And this is why a lot of these cases go unresolved and why a lot of people aren't believed. Because if we're going to put it into a true context to really help people and really serve and help remediate the trauma from people who experience it through sexual fawning, we have to get really honest and understand what it is we're working with. We're not working with your typical perpetrator who's psychotic or abusive and lacks empathy and who's raping someone. We're working with someone who's misattuned, who might be selfish sexually, who might not understand social cues or how to pick up on people's body language or what they're needing. And then someone else whose body is so reflexively geared toward pleasing the other that there's no signal that they aren't enjoying what's happening. This isn't to let this person who's misattuned off the hook. This person has to learn attunement and cues and how to better conduct themselves around people, especially in power dynamics. Yet, one way we can start preventing this and creating a new conversation instead of pointing the finger at one person or the other is to understand that in this particular situation, in these situations where someone is alleged abuse that was consensual and non-consensual, that's when we can have the signal that sexual fawning is taking place. Part of me wanted it, part of me did not. The part that wants it, I'll speak for myself when I went through this, and I'll speak based on the witnessing, I mean, hundreds of these accounts over the last decade. The part that wants it is the part that never felt like it belonged somewhere. It's the desperation for belonging. Gabor Mate puts it so well. He says that when we lack secure attachment, attachment will always win over authenticity. And that's the somatic subconscious formula that contributes to a sexual fawning expression or a mechanism of sexual fawning. I am so desperate to belong somewhere that I will perform even with my body sexually to secure my attachment to the other. So in that moment, part of me, the performance, is consenting, is verbalizing, is giving someone somatic, nonverbal, and clear verbal cues that I want this, that I enjoy you, that I want more, that this is okay for me. There is a part that's saying that. And then there's a part that's not okay with it. There's a part that's getting traumatized. There's a part that's feeling violated. There's a part that's dissociated and numbed out that we can't even feel until the situation is long gone. And then our body starts to settle into it and we realize, fuck, that was really not okay with me. And this is the conversation we have to start having so we can understand how to tend to the ruptures that come out in these situations. Hey, my friends. I created a space that is affordable, accessible, and anyone is allowed to join anytime, and it's called the Library Membership. The Library Membership is an online private platform that hosts dozens of my webinars, my somatic practices, private mini lectures, and movement practices. There's also a monthly sound healing, and you'll be invited to a weekly Tuesday live mini practice with me and other participants. You'll also be invited to be a live audience member in our monthly HLN team podcast recordings, where you'll take place in the Q&A that happens off air after the episode is filmed. For more information on this membership, click on the link below, or go to holisticlifenavigation.com and click on membership and then library. You can join right now and you can cancel or pause your subscription at any time. I look forward to seeing you in there. I can't tell somebody they're abusive when I sexually fawned with them, when my body performed to secure an attachment with them and did things that I didn't want to do, but my body knew if I did this, this person would like me, we would have an attachment, we'd have a connection, a secure belonging in some way. I can't blame that on the other person. I can educate the other person on certain things they might have missed. I can tell the person my truth once I connect to it and have a safety and a support system to tell them my truth if the person's safe to share it with. But I can't call that person a rapist or a sexual assaulter or even call them abusive, because when sexual fawning is happening, consent is being performed. I'm going to say that again. When you're sexually fawning, consent is being performed, meaning the other individual, and in many cases, the other very misattuned individual sexually and emotionally, is being told through the performance of the body when it's fawning that you are consenting to this act. This does not mean it's your fault, just as it doesn't mean it's their fault. It's by design supposed to work this way. Fawning saves lives. Sexual fawning saves many lives. Sexual fawning is supposed to trick you and the other individual into the fact you're consenting so it works. Fawning is so powerful, it makes the individual who's fawning believe they like something. And then when the situation's over and you're in a secure place, maybe you're in therapy, maybe you're with friends, maybe you're far away from this person, the mechanism of fear starts to go down, the stress response, the stress hormones start to settle, and then your agency comes online, your actual boundaries, your actual integrity and what you feel comes online, and that's when the rupture starts to happen. That's when you gain access to the part of you that was frozen and dissociated during the sexual fawning performance. Why I find this so important, there's many reasons. I'm going to try to name as many as I can think of right now. First reason, when you understand sexual fawning, you start to release decades of shame. Because I know personally from doing it, and a lot of clients I've worked with, we carry so much shame and disgust and guilt and hatred toward ourselves for not saying no, for not walking away, for going on the second date, for staying with the person for months or years. And I understand it. There's a boundary violation happening, so a part of us is angry. That's a healthy response to a boundary violation. However, the anger is misguided and misused. If I'm just angry at the other person or just angry at myself, I'm not going to really get anywhere. I have to understand the anger is a signal a boundary was crossed. And with fawning, it is designed to allow a boundary to be crossed. I want to say no, and instead of the boundary of a no, I say yes. So the body performs an openness, an invitation, a closeness, and even a pleasure when it really wants to recoil in disgust. So a boundary is violated, so anger builds up, but it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not the other person's fault. In cases where the other individual is truly maliciously manipulating you or forcibly penetrating you, that's a completely different story. That's not what I'm suggesting or talking about here. I'm talking about consensual experiences where you say yes, where you go back, where you write beautiful things in between to somebody, where you pretend to enjoy it in the moment. And again, replace you with your body in situations when your body says yes with a gesture, with a moan, with pulling someone into you or close to you, with nodding, with saying it, right? When your body reflexively writes a text message, that was amazing, I can't wait till next time. Or you're a wonderful, beautiful person. Or thank you for an amazing evening, even when the evening sucks. When your body says yes to the second date, third, fourth, 20th date, even though deep inside there's a big no, I don't want to see this person again. These are moments of sexual fawning, and the sooner we learn that and understand it, the sooner we can interrupt it and avoid it and truly step into a conversation around accountability, which means I'm responsible for learning about sexual fawning so my body doesn't take over, and people I'm around are responsible for learning that with me if they want to be intimate with me. I want them to know my cues when I'm sexually fawning so they know this isn't me really liking it. This is a reflexive thing. Now, I'm going to close this with a little practice because I don't want to just talk about it and leave you hanging when you're identifying with this and understanding it. The first thing that really helps you understand sexual fawning is, and I have a whole webinar on this, by the way, so you can look at the link in this episode to take that webinar. I think it's called Sexual Fetish and Fawning. So check that out. It's a very, very important webinar that goes deep into all this. But a simple practice to begin with is think of someone who you consent to being with, but you don't truly enjoy the sexual experience, whether it's kissing, whether it's oral sex, whether it's touching, or full on penetration. I want you to notice in your body when you think of them and you think of the sexual experience, what part of you feels disgust? What part of you starts to constrict and grip? What part of you starts to shut down and pull away and get tense? That's your boundary. That's the first thing to notice because before you fawn, you're going to have a constriction and then a performance takes place. So as you're thinking about this person, you can think about something coming up or a recent situation. Put your hand over that place that's constricting. And if it's somewhere else that you can't reach, just send your breath there. Put your hand there and just settle into it so you can get to know what that feels like. We want to embody our constriction because, interestingly enough, a lot of constriction really fast will cause a numbness so we can't feel it. But constriction is the key. It's the compass of my no when I've been fawning my whole life and I don't know what no feels like. I'm so used to the reflexive yes to please the other. So you want to embody the constriction and then notice from where the performance comes. So let's say I'm nodding yes and I'm seeming really excited, but my jaw, my neck, my chest, my belly are all just crumbling and turning inwards. I feel like a nausea in my solar plexus and a tension in my shoulders, yet I'm doing this. Notice how the body performs from the tension. That performance is your fawning. That tension is your boundary. So if you put your hand over that tension and you say to it, what do you need? What do you want to do here? What do you want to say? You will either get an image of yourself doing something, you'll get words, You'll get emotional feelings, movements. The body speaks in many different languages. And unfortunately, they're not always English or they're not always a verbal language. They are gestures, poses, sensations, temperature changes, images. They can be very abstract, but your work is to slowly touch in 5 minutes a day to the tension in response to a sexual or intimate experience you have had with someone or you have coming up, so you can learn what your body really wants. Does it want to go slower? Does it want to take sex off the table completely? Does it need more kissing? Does it just need to know in the sexual intimate experience that at any time you can say the word pause and everything stops until you settle again? This is important to assess because this is going to teach you if you're with the right person and if that person has the capacity for learning your body and attuning to you. If you don't have this conversation with the individual, you're never going to know if they're open to something that's truly consensual and truly exploratory in terms of boundaries and needs. And they deserve it too. So when you speak it and you invite them into it, they now have permission to say what they really need instead of just fawn. Sexual fawning affects married people and people in long-term relationships just as much as it does people that hook up and people who are polyamorous. And I'm saying that from, again, my personal experience in my life and from hundreds of people that I have counseled over the years who are in beautiful, beautiful long-term monogamous relationships with real friendship and love and connection. And they reflexively perform in bed to make the other feel secure and to secure themselves to the other. And every time we do that, it's a slight violation. So I hope this video helps create some nuance as we explore this more with people in our world. And I really want to hear your true comments. I'm not interested in debates. I want to hear your questions. Bring me into more nuance of this subject so I can teach it even better to you. I'll do as many follow-up videos as I need to because sexual fawning is so pervasive and is at the root of a lot of sexual assault allegations, and it is so at the root of sexual trauma. When you have sexually fawned in an experience that doesn't feel good to you over and over again, you have the same resulting sexual trauma as if you've been raped. So I don't want to conflate rape and sexual trauma. They don't always go hand in hand. Rape will cause sexual trauma, but sexual trauma isn't always caused by rape. It can be caused by sexual fawning. And we don't want to ruin somebody's life who was fawned to, who took the cues of the fawning rather than the hidden subconscious cues that were dissociated of I don't want this. And I don't want to ruin your life and have you think you actually enjoy these kind of sexual experiences, or there's something wrong with you that you keep saying yes when you mean no. You were born with the mechanism of sexual fawning. No one taught you about it. Let's take our time to learn. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next.